What happens next may take your breath away and hopefully get you thinking.
The magnitude of that moment did not escape the nation's view.
6-year-old Ruby Bridges and 4 federal marshals.
We've been sent by the President of the United States, and we are here to escort you to school today.
The governor of the state decided that
I will not force my people to integrate against their will.
I didn't want them to go to school with the
Going through this kind of living hell, what would you expect?
Crowds of protesters lined the streets.
Teachers at the school refused to instruct her.
Governor George Wallace, who blocked by literally standing in the door.
I say to keep these kids out of school.
200 people waiting at 8:30 in the morning to tell her they were going to kill her.
Then they had a machine gun beside their guns. They
threatened to poison Ruby.
President of the United States sent troops.
You are one of my heroes. I'm here because of you.
The governor called the National Guard.
All because of just one little girl.
He pulled his gun to shoot. Things were going to get really worse.
I can't believe this kind of stuff happens.
I would like to know what's happening to her.
Until now, she has never told the full story of what happened to her.
When they knocked on the door, my parents opened the door, and I remember standing there and seeing these 4 very tall white men. I remember them saying that we're federal marshals. We've been sent by the President of the United States, and we are here to escort you and your daughter to school today. I found myself in the car driving this very short drive to this new school, and the minute we turned the corner, I saw what I thought was Mardi Gras. There were so many people standing out in the middle of the street, and they were screaming and shouting and throwing things.
I draw the line in the dust, and I say segregation now, segregation tomorrow, and segregation forever.
The car door opened, and those federal marshals, they grabbed my hand, and I remember them saying, "Ruby, walk straight ahead and don't look back."
I say for the mothers to keep these kids out of school. All together, we're white people. We don't want them to go to school with
One of the city policemen, he pulled his gun to shoot, and everybody said they knew probably to kill me. They said if they killed the mother, the child wouldn't have went.
200 people waiting at 8:30 in the morning to tell her they were going to kill her. 200 people in the afternoon telling her they were going to kill her.
The crowd would come, and they would bring a small baby's coffin, and they put this black doll inside of the coffin, and they would march around the school, and I would have to pass it to get inside of the building. And I used to have nightmares about the coffin.
This is a people's movement. It doesn't make any difference whether the major politicians are going to support you or not. If they don't support us in this movement to take back our government and give it to us and let us run our own institutions, those who stand in the way are liable to get run over.
When I got inside of the building, I remember it being very quiet.
I received a call from the superintendent's office and asking me if I would like to take a first grade position. That morning when I arrived, of course, the anger and the hostility was palpable. I was told that if I went downstairs, I would meet my student. So I walked down to a cavernous basement area of the school. Those doors instantly opened, and amidst this towering presence of federal marshals stood the most beautiful little girl one could ever dream of seeing, looking so delicate, so unaware of the mantle for change she wore that day. And as I went over toward her to introduce myself, she came forward, and I think she felt she was pretty special. And she was, and she looked that way. She had a beautiful pink dress, party dress. And as I walked over to meet her, her bowed head sort of raised gently, and a little smile came across her face, and then those beautiful big brown eyes that she still has rose to meet mine. And you know, it was a case of love at first sight. How could you not fall in love with a child like that in a moment like that? And so, leaving behind a cameo of the past, Ruby and I held our hands, left them, walked together upstairs to our first grade classroom, and began our solitary adventure.
I remember looking at her and thinking, she's white. I'd never seen a white teacher before. She looked exactly like the people outside. She wasn't.
By the next day, the crowds had doubled.
They kept pointing at me and shouting. They kept saying, we're going to poison her. We're going to hang her. I remember hearing my mom said that she would send me to school and that every day she would sit and pray all day to 3 o'clock until I walked back through the door. And the federal marshals, they met with my parents and they said, you should prepare her lunch and she should eat it at her desk. They actually thought that I was afraid of being poisoned. And I remember them coming to me and saying, why were you not eating? And why did you lie? And I said, because I want to eat lunch in the cafeteria with the other kids. The minute we got to the cafeteria and they pushed open the doors, nothing but empty tables. There were no kids. And I remember being so disappointed about that. I just knew they were in the cafeteria. I would go into this coat closet to hang up my coat, and every time I went into the closet, I would hear kids' voices. And I would mention it to my teacher, and she wouldn't say anything. And there were days when I would go back into the closet and I would just stand there, just to see if I really heard them. And I did. You see, there were white parents who tried to send their kids to school with me. Those white parents had to cross the same picket line that I did, and they were never protected by federal marshals. As they crossed the picket line, the principal would take the kids and she would hide them, so they would never see me, and I would never see them.
I went up to the principal and I said, why are they not with Ruby? And she said, well, that teacher won't teach her. And I said, well, I will teach them. And so shortly thereafter, they would come and join us for the afternoon. And I do remember that beginning, where there was 3 or 4 little kids just gingerly walked into that room, because that was the first time they had ever been in a classroom with a black child.
I went in to sit down to play with them, but that is the day. Because a little boy looked at me and he said, I can't play with you. My mom said not to play with you because you're a. And the minute he said that, I remember to this very day, it felt as if this weight lifted off my shoulders. All of a sudden, by him saying that, I knew why there were no kids there. And the truth is, even though he hurt my feelings, I was never angry with him. Because in my mind, I thought he was explaining to me why he couldn't play with me. He said, my mom said not to play with you. And I thought to myself, if my mom had said, Ruby, don't play with him. He's Asian. Don't play with him. He's Indian, he's Hispanic, he's white. If my mom had said not to play with him, I would not have played with him. So I wasn't angry with him. I understood.
One cannot underestimate the courage of Ruby and the power a child has.
I believed it was in the best interest of white and black to be in a segregated school system. But I was wrong.
Our children need to know that white folks and black folks, they stood together. Thank God for the teacher that was there. She was my best friend, and she taught me the lesson that Dr. King tried to teach each and every one of us. And that is, we should never judge a person by the color of their skin. I always say that she showed me her heart.
We had a grand time together, I think, side by side, just the two of us.
I believe that if we are going to get past our racial differences, it's going to come from our kids. But we as adults have to allow them opportunities to come together. I think it's important for kids to dream and be able to believe that they can follow those dreams. I don't think I would be here today if I wasn't dreaming.